Hello everyone. Thank you for joining this session again. I want to take this opportunity to introduce the speaker of today, and her name is Alison Kingsley-Hall, an Africa's strategic growth catalyst with 20 years shaping Africa's media and business landscape. Alison Kingsley-Hall merges sharp strategy with transformative action as Group Head Strategy and Operations at Africa Leadership Organization. She drives operational excellence and Pan-African growth. Her leadership spans iconic brands from BBC Focus on Africa to the Africa Report and pioneering roles like growing investment, Africa's Elite Network, a sought-after mentor for the Charlie Blair Foundation, Oxford Said Business School, and actually, she's also a judge for Africa's Business Heroes at the Jack Ma Foundation. She fueled entrepreneurship. Beyond boardrooms, she uplifts communities through Sivusiswe Africa, supporting fatherless boys, and her consultancy's high impact projects. She's South African born and continent wide impact. So I want to welcome you to and the floor is yours. Thank you. Welcome, Alison.
Thank you so much, Trevor. What a great introduction. I hope I can live up to that. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with you today, and I really look forward to this session. What we're going to do is go through the slides and my presentation, and then we'll have time for at least 20 minutes at the end for a Q&A. And this presentation is particularly relevant to myself because I've become a consultant in the last 2 years after working full-time for many years. So I'm really keen to hear your feedback as well. So we're looking at remote working and freelancing. I've got a few slides that I want to go through with you, about 10 in total. And they'll start with really identifying the differences between remote working, startups, and freelancing, looking at the freelance market in numbers, particularly in Africa, and then the pros and cons of working from home. You know, all of us were forced to work from home during COVID. How are we coping with that now? Do you have a great setup at home, or was it a challenge? I'm going to look at the benefits of freelancing as a stepping stone to starting your own business, and examples of fantastic businesses that started as startups. I also want to look at freelancing opportunities and some online tools to enhance your work. What was interesting when I looked at those was I realized that, you know, a lot of them are there for free. I want to look at key considerations for turning your freelance work into a business and why you need a business plan as an African freelancer. And then just some final tips on how to run your business while working from home. So let's dig in. So just to clarify the differences, because there's some overlap between all of this. So remote working can be classed as working from home from a location other than the main workplace. So you could be a remote worker even though you're working for a full-time employer, or you could be a remote worker as a freelancer. I included a startup here because this refers to a newly created company or business, often in its early stages, and it's got the aim of developing a product or a service and achieving rapid growth. And that could ultimately relate to your freelancing business. Freelancing, which is where I stand, is a form of self-employment where we offer our services on a contract or project base. We may work for multiple clients like I do. We have the freedom to choose our projects, set our own rates, and determine how much we work. And we have to look after our own taxes, benefits, and other expenses, which I guess is the downside. So I just wanted to look really at freelancing in numbers because it really has seen an enormous growth across the continent in recent years. According to a 2023 report, the Africa's gig economy workforce is growing at an annual rate of 11%. So in Nigeria alone, only over 35% of young people engage in freelance work. And the market growth is enormous. If we look at South Africa, the freelance platforms market is projected to reach 306.2 million by 2030. And as a South African, I can really relate to that because Unofficially, our unemployment rates in South Africa are around 50%. So it's a huge challenge to find paid work, and a lot of people are freelancing. So there's huge potential for freelancing in Africa because of your youthful population, the growing entrepreneurial culture. McKinsey report predicts that online talent platforms could increase employment by 72 million full-time equivalent positions by 2025. That's by next year. So this change in the work culture and environment is happening so quickly. I wanted to look at the pros and cons of working from home for us freelancers or startups. And there are clearly many pros and many cons, and they suit or may not suit everyone's personality. So certainly one big pro is the cost savings. So you have lower overhead costs for office space, utilities, and that great thing about commuting. I'm based in London. I was commuting for my full-time work into central London every day, spending about an hour on the tube, and what a relief not to have to do that anymore. Increased flexibility. You can set your own hours, work from anywhere. I've gone back to South Africa to see family, work from there, worked in the garden. So we really have flexibility around where we can work. And, you know, this is a debatable point, but enhanced productivity. So there should be fewer distractions and a more focused environment. And then a broader talent pool. So we now have access to workers from different locations internationally and time zones. And you see, you know, people getting digital visas for Thailand or Vietnam. So we really are working in a changing working environment right now. I included a video. AJ, would you mind dropping this video number 1 into the chat, please? So you should be able to see the video link in a moment. Unfortunately, I can't play it. I've understood that for copyright reasons, we can't play it. But if you want to have a look at this in your own time. So it's a video by Tedle Neely, who's a professor at Harvard Business School. And she really highlights all of the benefits that I've just mentioned, you know, for remote working, from having that time and space at home to not having to commute. I included a photograph there of a commute in Lagos. I currently work with African Leadership Organization, who have offices in Abuja and in the UK. I know the traffic in Abuja is possibly a bit better than Lagos, but I know that my team or my colleagues still face great challenges with their commute. So it's really worth having a look at that video when you have a moment. Harvard Business School just gives you some really interesting viewpoints on the benefits of remote working. The cons do exist as well. So there are communication challenges, and maybe you found this in your business. So, you know, difficulties in maintaining effective communication and collaboration with team members. You know, do we know that our team members or our colleagues or people we have sourced work out to are working or are getting through the work that they need to? Social isolation. Some people thrive on working on their own. Others really don't like it. I have friends who absolutely hated the working from home process during COVID. And now that they're back in full-time work, they prefer being in the office. And then other people love working from home. The work-life balance. You know, if you've got children at home, or you've got elderly parents, or whatever your situation is at home, how do you separate your work from your personal life? I know I find it challenging at times, certainly when my partner's off from work. it's not easy. And that leads to the blurred boundaries. The lack of a clear commute in the morning can make it really hard to disconnect from work. I try and have a process where I get up and have sort of set times of the day where I do certain things, but I think that's an important point. Move to another room, to your office space, whatever that looks like. And then security risks. We don't have some big IT department to turn to and sort out our IT problems or our security risks. So it's something that we have to deal with ourselves as a freelancer. So this was another video that I was going to show you. AJ, if you could post video number 2. I imagine that a lot of you have seen this. I don't know why, but I do find this video extremely funny. And I do sympathize for Professor Kelly. So I used to work for the BBC, so I have extra sympathy here. So I think this was a video during COVID, and Professor Robert Kelly was being interviewed live on BBC News about South Korea, and he had his door to his office at home shut. He apparently normally kept it locked, but that day he hadn't locked it. And the video starts with him presenting a very serious presentation about South Korea. The door opens, one of the children comes running through, and he pretends to not notice it. Then the baby comes through in its stroller, and then his wife comes racing through and tries to drag the kids up, crawling on the floor. You want to die of embarrassment for him, but also sympathize enormously for him. So these are the challenges. When I was working my previous full-time job during COVID, I had one colleague who was sharing his home with his partner, and he ended up working from the bathroom in the bath on certain days because he didn't have any other space. So the challenges of working from home. I then wanted to move on to the benefits of freelancing as a stepping stone to starting your business. And I think this is where, as a freelancer, it's an interesting space, because I sometimes don't even see my freelancing work or consultancy work as a business. But of course it is. I'm generating income. I'm supporting other clients. I'm hopefully creating employment in the work I'm doing. So we really have to look at our freelancing, as a business, and potentially as a stepping stone to starting a bigger business. And I think what's interesting is it allows us to leverage our skills and trade our expertise for income while building this portfolio of work and saving money to invest in a business. So, the income I can generate from my business can help with expenses or development or travel, etc. So, as a recap, generating income is the one thing. Freelancing allows founders to earn income while building their expertise and expanding the network. I certainly didn't have a big pot of money when I started my consultancy. So all the money I'm generating is supporting the business and my living expenses. As freelancers, we build a portfolio of projects, and very quickly they build up. And when Trevor introduced me at the beginning, I sort of had to remember that all of those things he mentioned are what I have done, and it's amazing how quickly you can build up your portfolio of work. The other benefits, which I've already mentioned, is the saving for the business. So you could feed that money back into research, development, or marketing. And then I think flexibility around freelancing. So, you could be having a flexible work schedule with your freelance work while you start creating your business or your startup. So you could be, working on a business plan in your spare hours, if you have any, or really attending events and doing a lot of research. And then the learning and networking part is so important. I particularly love this. I love going to industry events. I love going to meeting like-minded colleagues, feeding off their ideas. So, use this opportunity to learn new skills when we're in full-time work, we don't always get offered the opportunity to learn new skills, or we don't always have the time. And I think as a freelancer, you can carve out time to really learn new skills. And they don't even have to be directly related to your business, but something that adds value. So I'm personally really trying to better understand the use of AI at the moment. And, I think there's so many free online sites that we can use to do that research. So that's something I would definitely recommend. During the research for this presentation, I was amazed at some of the businesses that I came across that started as startups from home in Africa. And I'm sure many of you actually know some of these. So in the fintech space, there's PiggyVest, which I've actually only recently heard about. But apparently it's hugely successful, savings and investments platform. Wave in Senegal, a fintech company. Thank You Cash in Nigeria. And then Jumia, which is really big in Nigeria, e-commerce platform. So all of these started as startups with people working from home in their own space at home, having an idea, starting small and moving from there. I also looked at other types of freelancing opportunities for startups. And, I think the list is absolutely endless. I'm sorry, it seems to have, I hope you can see that. But, I believe the list is endless. But some obvious areas that work well are writing, so content creation, blog posts, website copy, design, so graphic design, logo design, marketing, which I do, so social media management, email marketing, tech, app development, and then consultancy, business strategy, marketing strategy. I do believe that list keeps on growing because as we, adjust more to the use of AI, to the remote working, I think we'll find even greater opportunities of work. The other thing to look at to enhance your remote work is the tools that are available to you. And it's quite amazing how many of these are free. And perhaps we don't use them as much as we should do. I know I don't always use all of them. And through this presentation, I've decided to start using more of them. So, comms tools, Zoom, StreamYard that we're on right now, Google Meet, etc. We all know those. But if you look at things like project management tools, Asana, Trello, Monday.com, I don't use any of those at the moment, and I know I absolutely should do. Collaboration tools, so Google Workspace, Airtable, time tracking tools, really important if you have a client who's paying you by the hour. I'm personally have a different payment system for some of my clients, so I don't necessarily need to track time, but I think it's an important exercise. I certainly have friends in the freelance space who find that they spend hours on projects and then, complain about not being paid enough. But I think that comes down to our own time management. Customer relationship management systems, HubSpot, Salesforce. I personally love Salesforce. I think there is a charge for that though, but I found it a very useful tool. And then cultural tools like, virtual happy hours, team building activities if you've got a team. So I think it's so important to embrace these tools and let them become part of your work. Let them be useful to you. If they aren't useful, that's a different story, but hopefully they will be. I just wanted to look now at key considerations if you really want to turn your freelance work into a business. And in fact, I think it's, freelance work is a business anyway, but perhaps you're wanting to grow it specifically, make it into a bigger proposal. So one of the first things is really define your services. And I think this is a good thing for all of us to do, even if we're just moving along on a day-to-day basis with our businesses or with our freelance work. Sometimes you need to stop and really think about what you're doing, what you're providing. So what are your services? Even if you're just defining this to yourself, what are you really good at, and who is your target audience? And I've certainly found that I've needed to reconsider this over the last 2 years as my clients have changed. It goes without saying that we all need an online presence, and whether that's through a website or just being very strong on your social media profile, using LinkedIn very effectively. I personally find LinkedIn works very well for me. You may have a different approach, but I think that's really important. We all want to be able to see everyone's profiles and easily access someone else's information. And we have to be so careful about what information we put out there about ourselves. I've mentioned this already, but the networking side, so network and build relationships, attend those industry events. There are still events that are for free, or online webinars for free. Connect with your other professionals, build a strong network. Certainly in London, in the African space, I found that that's absolutely invaluable. In fact, it's quite a small space ultimately. Everyone knows each other, but it's so useful to keep that network strong. Then market your services. This, again, doesn't have to cost too much. We have a lot of free social media tools available to us. So whether this is through you creating a weekly newsletter for your audience, or posting relevant information on LinkedIn, or sharing your blogs on your website, there are many ways to market your services without it being a sort of traditional hard sell. And then set clear goals and objectives. So I certainly personally have not been very good about this, because for me it's been quite organic. But I think this is important, really defining your business goals, how you're going to achieve them, what exactly you want to achieve, whether it's financially or just certain clients you would like, for instance. So those are some of the tips that I have. I'm almost coming back to one of my first slides here about the pros and cons of running your business from home. But this is more about how to create the right environment. And I think this is an important one to think about. And really, because sometimes it's not that easy to do this. So mimicking an office culture. My office is a corner of my lounge. So I have cats running past me. I have my partner coming in and out. I have the neighbors' children downstairs making a lot of noise. But I try and control the space as much as I possibly can. So, as much as you can, set it up in a corporate environment. Make it accessible only to the people working with you, or have a decision with your family members to give you that space for a certain number of hours each day. Plan your time and set your priorities each day. You could do this through multiple use of online platforms. Doesn't matter whether it's a digital to-do list or using one of the online platforms I mentioned earlier on. But it's really important about, to have a daily to-do list, to have clear objectives about what you're getting done, what's completed, what's in progress, particularly if you're juggling a lot of clients. I think we all have different methods. I swear by my daily to-do list, which just seems to get longer and longer, but it works for me. Make use of free or low-cost services. So this is something I mentioned earlier. You can use something like Wave accounting for your expenses. You can use Google Voice or Skype for your calls. There's a multitude of free, cheap services that it's important to keep on top of. And, it's different per country. You may not be able to use certain platforms in your country, but there will be alternatives, I'm sure of that. Understanding your taxes. This is a big one, and it's one that I don't think any of us really enjoy. I was lucky enough when I left the BBC to be given a course on setting myself up as a freelancer, which included operating my taxes. And what surprised me is it was far easier than I imagined. I'm not saying that's going to be the case for you, but certainly in the UK, we do have the option of really speaking directly to the tax office, getting important information. In your country, however easy or difficult it is to operate your taxes, it's just essential to keep up to date with that. So keeping, a folder, virtual or physical, of all your expenses during the year, of the cost of your rental, the rental space within your home. So how much that would be pro rata of what you pay for rent, for instance, how much electricity you're using in the room that you operate from. Really, just try and keep that up to date on a monthly basis. It makes it so much easier to do at the end of the year. Then the other thing is, which I've said a few times, connect with like-minded people. So industry events, networking, groups on LinkedIn are useful as well. Anything to keep you motivated, to keep you accessible to people in the same industry, and to show that you are engaged with what work you do. This is another video that I had that I unfortunately can't show you, but AJ, if you could drop video number 3 into the chat for us. When I was busy working on this presentation again, I totally by accident came across this fellow South African who had posted a video on YouTube about how he sustains himself as a freelancer. He works in South Africa. He's a musician, but he's also has sort of multi-talents. So I think he's a father, he's a partner, he's a musician. He also does voiceovers. And what I found really interesting about his video, and please go and watch it, is that he talks about having different times of the day where he's more prolific in certain types of work. So that we've all heard of that before, but it's not something that we can put into practice if you're in paid work working for an employer. You can't say, well, I have a slump between 2 and 3 o'clock. I need to go and have a little snooze. But Adrian really recognizes that. He says he's really good in the mornings, very prolific in the mornings. Afternoons, not so great. Evenings, a disaster because he has family to look after. And he also talks about having different paces during the week, which I thought was very interesting. And I definitely want to adopt this. So he talked about having certain days where he's very creative, and then one day, maybe a week, where it's more about just soaking in information, reading up on his area of expertise. I love that. I thought that was a very wise idea, because certainly in the creative space, if you try to be creative consistently, continuously, it must be a real challenge to keep that up. So I wanted to include this because it's not something we automatically think of as a freelancer. And I thought these suggestions were actually quite interesting because they relate specifically to working in Africa and how that then impacts you as a freelancer. And, I think these points are absolutely true. So one of them is because as a freelancer in Africa, we have certain challenges. I see this with my family in South Africa. I see various challenges that they are dealing with all the time. So it may be limited access to global freelance platforms. So some countries are excluded from pay platforms like PayPal, so it may limit your payment options for your products. Currency fluctuations and income instability. In South Africa, the rand is now 20-1 against the pound. So I don't know, I remember when it was 1-1 many, many years ago. So, we have currency fluctuations. It's more stable now, but, in Nigeria, you faced currency fluctuations. I can't think of any African country that really hasn't. So, and also access to dollars. So, that's something we need to build into our future projections. Local freelance ecosystems may be underdeveloped in your area. I spoke to an entrepreneur earlier this week who mentioned exactly that. She talked about the deficit in really strong freelance ecosystems. So, you may still have to build trust and credibility of your product or your services in your market. One thing I didn't include in this list, but is absolutely obvious, is unstable internet access. As I said, I work with a team in Abuja, and they unfortunately often face unstable internet access, which has a profound or can have a profound effect on their work. So these are sort of things to think about when we're projecting our finances as a freelancer, the work that we all have coming in. This is the one downside to being a freelancer. We don't have that set income every month. We have this great freedom and creativity, but we have to bear in mind that global forces, regional forces, could have an impact on our work. And this was one of the final videos I wanted to show you. AJ, if you could drop video number, it's actually number 4. It's the Theo Baloi video of CEO of Batu Shoes. So this was, again, just showing you a video about someone who started their business from the back of a car boot, back of his car. He's a South African. He lived abroad for a while, went back to South Africa, saw a market in local trainers, producing local trainers, and started doing it from his car trunk. And it has grown into this huge business. And he also gives back a lot to his local community, which is great. So he left a stable job that supported his family. And ultimately, this business that he grew from nothing is now supporting 400 more families. So you can view that slide when you have a moment. So I just wanted to share a final thought with everyone. And we all know Jeff Bezos of Amazon, but I didn't actually know this about Jeff. So apparently he quit his job 4 years after being named as the youngest vice president of a successful Wall Street investment firm. And he moved to Seattle to start working in what he believed was this untapped online retailing opportunity in the book industry. And he started in his garage in Washington, and he started developing the software and working on the business. And eventually in July 95, he launched Amazon. So he started that in a garage with just this idea of this huge potential that no one had tapped into. And apparently he sold his first book from the garage. And as you know, today the company is the world's largest online retailer. So if you think you cannot start or run a business while working from home, please think again. That's really the whole of my presentation. And I just want to say very good luck on your freelancing journey. And I'd love to hear your question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Alison, for such an insightful session. So we'll just go straight to our Q&A sessions. And the first question is from Semono, and is asking, how does the government then regulate remote working, as people working remotely often work in different countries and and not even compliant with regulation and tax laws.
Trevor, sorry, it broke up a little bit. So Simona was asking how you remain compliant with tax laws. Okay, regulate remote working as people working. Yes, it's a very good question. I think you have to ensure that you are compliant with your own tax laws in your own country. So let me think. So if you are, I'm, for instance, paid by clients who are based in the UK and based outside of the UK, but I file my taxes in the UK. So I don't know how, I guess it's very hard to regulate, for the government to regulate other people's remote working. But I guess what you're asking about is your own business and remaining compliant with government regulations and tax laws, even if you're dealing with other people working in other markets. I think that's my understanding. And if that is, my key advice is that you remain completely tax compliant in your own country. So if you're being paid externally, you go through the right processes with your tax department in your country. But Chen, sorry, I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Okay, so again, we'll dive to the second question from Karanu, and the question is, how does someone based in sub-Saharan Africa access and get reliable, honest clients for the services, and their client would like to offer in remote working and freelancing?
So I'm guessing, okay. Okay, Karanu, I think that's a good question, because that is one of the problems, isn't it? Is finding reliable, honest clients. It's one thing being a reliable provider yourself, but also you have to find the reliable clients. And I've certainly had that problem. I don't think there's an easy, straightforward answer to that. I think this is where networking and sort of attending industry events and understanding your market very well comes into it. Because, for instance, if you getting work through a client who who is in the industry that you work in and is known to everyone else, it doesn't benefit them at all not to be an honest client. It doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. I know my brother in South Africa has had that problem, but he's very selective now about the clients he takes on. So I think it's about researching your clients. It's about really trying to find out their backstory. It's about maybe, using things like LinkedIn and your own networks to sort of get work through your networks. Personally, I find getting work through my own networks is the best option, because it's, people who know people. And because of that, it means, there's a more sort of honesty and reliability through that. So, Karanu, I don't think there's an easy answer, and I understand the challenge. And that's why I was personally put off some of the freelance platforms, to be honest, because I didn't feel as if I could gauge the honesty of those clients. And I've ended up getting clients through my own network and just building that network continuously. Thanks, Trevor.
Okay, so the other question comes some few questions from KS1. The first question is, what are the challenges of scaling a startup with a remote team, and how can they be mitigated?
That's a great question. If you could leave that up, Trevor, thank you. So, KS, I think that is a really good question, and I almost see it in my current working with a remote team. Not that I'm scaling up, but I think it's all about communication. So it's really challenging. I mean, particularly, for instance, if you are on different time zones, or you're working different hours. But I think communication is 100% key to this. So even if that requires a daily check-in with your team, I think that's absolutely fine. I think it has to be very clear to everyone what their daily duties are, a clear communication about actions, goals, a clear communication about the working environment you're working in, because a remote team, you may all be working in different kind of modes and processes. Also, effective use of a community online platform, whether it's Salesforce or Bitrix 24. I use Bitrix 24 with one team I'm working with, and that works well because you can see who's online, you can post questions, also have perhaps have a clear understanding amongst the teams to how quickly your own turnaround is going to be. So if you pose a question to the team or you've got deadlines, make sure those deadlines are met, etc. Communication, though, for me. How can I structure payment contacts and performance reviews for freelancers? I think it entirely, you have to look at the industry to see what the industry is paying freelancers within your space. If I was a freelancer in a different space, there would be different fees. So really just try and find out what the competition is paying, and then find a fee structure that works for you. I know that consultants in my space are paid a certain amount. I come in slightly lower than that for a reason, but I know what the sort of line is. So it's about research. Performance reviews. I think, again, that's up to you, but there are lots of sort of KPI templates online you could use for key performance indicators. So I don't think there's a straightforward answer for that. There's a lot available online. Your contracts, there are a lot of templates you can upload for free. So that's where I would start. Thanks, KS.
Great, great. And I have another question from KS as well. And the question is, what legal or HR consideration should I be aware of when hiring remote or freelance workers across countries?
Again, KS, very good question. I think what you have to ensure is the contract that you put in place is legally correct within your own country. So I would, if you're not using a template for the country for a contract from the country you're in, if you can get it checked out by a legal person, I have standard templates that are UK compliant, because if I'm paying someone, I'm paying from the UK to another country, so it's compliant with the country I'm employing the person from. So I think that's the starting point for you. Tools and platforms, some of them are listed in my presentation, and if you want access to that list again, I can resend it, or we could post it for you. So, there's a multitude. CRM management tools, as I said, Salesforce, Bitrix 24, or even if your team prefers being on WhatsApp, it really is down to you and your team. But there are a lot of platforms that can work quite efficiently and cheaply as well. Thanks, Trevor.
Okay, the other question I can see is, what tools and platforms are best for managing a remote team effectively?
Yes, that's the one I've just answered. So, it depends on how much money you want to spend, what kind of team. If it's, for instance, I use Salesforce for a team who is working across sales and membership. So that worked very well because the team could track their progress on the clients they found. They could track where they were in the whole conversion to sales process. So are you working in sales? If you are, you would need something like that. Do you just want a platform where you can sort of set tasks, but it's sector agnostic? That could be something like Bitrix 24. I think you need to do a bit of research. It's really kind of depends on the industry you work in. Because if it's sales driven, you would need something that can chart the progress of sales that your team are working on. I hope that helps.
Great.
Kaz.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. So again, I have another question from Agromet Limited, and they're asking, what are the online payment systems available for West Africa freelancers? Because I have been looking for a payment system effective for Sierra Leone, West Africa, and it's really hard to find.
Oh, Agromet, that is a fantastic question. Could I please come back to you? Trevor or AJ, could you get Agromet's company email? Because I have a client in Sierra Leone actually at the moment who will definitely have that information. I don't have it to hand at the moment, but I can definitely find out for you. Because I know the freelancers I know in Sierra Leone are paid outside of the country and within. So if I could connect afterwards, that would be great.
Okay, we'll look up to it. So another question from Remy, and the question is, what about being a solopreneur where you co-associate with co-founders and entities by agreement instead of being in partnership and dealing with payroll for full-time employees?
Thank you, Geba. Let me just read this because I presume so. Solopreneur is not a term I know, but I presume you're saying as a solo entrepreneur, and you're co-associating with co-founder, co-entity. Okay, in partnership. Okay, no, absolutely. So I guess it's different per country, but for instance, I'm entering into exactly that right now in the next week, in fact. So I am officially a sole trader in the UK. So I don't know what your status would be for tax purposes in your countries, but maybe you are called a solopreneur. I am going into a contract or an MOU with a business entity, but I will be on a contract with them. So I think it's absolutely perfectly fine to be co-associating with other entities, and just being on a contract with them, but you are listed as a co-associate or co-founder. I mean, it really depends on the country you're in and the legal requirements. But I know personally that I'm able to do that here in the UK, where as a sole trader, I am trading with a business company, but I am contracted by them. So I'm not involved with any of their payrolls or their full-time employees, and that's not what I am contracted out. And I guess that's what you would be looking for. I hope that
Okay, thank
answers
you.
it.
Yeah, yeah. So I have another question from Soft Mzuzu Investment, and the question is, how can one make online freelancing believable? Many people are afraid to do business online because they are afraid of being scammed. What features should one bring into making online freelancing?
Again, Sof, I think you've got a very strong point here, and this is where I personally feel it's all about making the connection so that any potential clients really know you, start, understanding how you do business. Because, yes, I mean, the reality is sometimes we are doing business with people we've never seen. We don't, we're only dealing with over the net. I really try and form some kind of relationship with anyone I am going to do business with, because purely doing it online and not even meeting them virtually or understanding their business. So for me, it's about research, find out who that company is, I would not take work directly from a client without understanding their business a bit, without having communication with them, without meeting them virtually. I think you have to apply the same rules. It may be like feel as if it's really easy to do this virtual work, but I still think you need to have that communication with these clients and kind of create some kind of establish some kind of connection with them, especially if you're in investments, soft, because that's all about human relationships, isn't it? So where you can you not meet those people virtually? Can you not build a rapport with your clients virtually, even if you can't meet them face to face? And research your clients and let your own products and company be very visible to them so they can see what you're about, and recommendations from other people if your clients want to meet virtually other clients, put them in contact. Let it be a lot of communication. That's my key point. I hope that helps a bit.
Great. Yeah, thank you for that. And I have another question from Fame City Stores. And the question is, there are issues of regional discrimination in the freelancing industry. How can freelancers in sub-Saharan African possibly overcome those barriers in a highly competitive environment?
Wow, you make a really good point, and we can speak about free trade zones and regional integration and all that, but this is the reality that you're facing. So I guess what you're saying is, I don't know, if you're based in Uganda and you're trying to pitch for work in Rwanda, you are facing that's just an example, but you are facing regional discriminations. I don't think there's an easy answer. I think it comes down to, again, showing the value of your own product and your work. My belief and hope is that the value of what you're doing and the quality of your work and your freelancing work will help overcome those barriers. There's no guarantee. There may always be that regional discrimination, but if you become the absolute expert in what you're doing and are totally reliable and deliver on time and become known as offering excellence in your area through your reputation, I can only hope that those regional discriminations and barriers come down. But I think you are absolutely right. You just got to be even better than your competitors. That's one of my key points.
Okay, thank you for that, Alison. And I have another question from them. And they're asking, I want to add freelancing to my pig farming. Please, what's your advice for me?
Could you please repeat that, Trevor?
Okay, from them, is saying, I want to add freelancing to my pig farming. What's your advice for me?
Okay, well, this is a great question, but it's so broad because, what kind of freelancing do you want to offer? So is it related to the pig farming? Is it something additional to that, but related to it? Or is it completely different? I don't know. Is it, doing blog writing or whatever? In them, I would absolutely, you need to narrow this down and say, what kind of freelancing are you talking about? But think about your own skill set. What you do pig farming, so you got your expertise in farming. Is there a related industry, perhaps, that you can see a possibility in that's not totally related to pig farming, but it could bring in extra income? I think start with your own area of control. Start with your own skills and think, what's an easy thing? It's hard to say from here, but for instance, in my consultancy, I do business consultancy, events, etc. But I also know that I've done translation work in the past, and it's something I'm good at. So I know that I can add that to my freelance work because it's something that I have connections with BBC and freelancing company. So what and them, what are your extra skills outside of pig farming that you could offer to other people that are needed in your area? Start with what's right in front of you. Thanks, Trevor.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Again, we have another question from Mr. Lazarus Mambo, and the question is: I am into agribusiness, and I have seen freelancing working well for me. But are there any online tools that can help on data processing that monitor my performance?
Lazarus, I would again like to really connect with you afterwards, if that's all right, to just drop you an email, because there are some great tools out there, and also just things like ChatGPT, which can certainly help on the data processing. Again, I have family members who use AI for data processing in South Africa, but that's in a retail environment. I've come across quite a few online tools in agribusiness. A lot of them are sort of new apps and new technology. So, Trevor, if I could get Lazarus's email, and I'll just drop him a line about some of the tools that I've come across, because I'd need to just pull them up from my own database. But there certainly are.
So, okay, we have another question from Mr. Salawu Rufai, and is asking, as an entrepreneur, how can I get real freelance or remote job to add it as another source of income?
Yeah, this comes back again. I think we all think, this freelance work, it's out there and we can just access it quite easily. But I think you have to start with your own skills, what you can offer and what you're strong at, and then use that and use your own network to try and connect with people. I do believe it starts with that, because I think it's very much recommendations. And so what are your skills, what are you good at, what services can you offer? Start with that. Are you good at copywriting? Are you good at it could be web design, perhaps. Start with something you're good at. Then consider doing something on a pro bono or free basis, just for one project, just so to get your name out there, if you really are just starting from the very start. And then, it's building those contacts and building your network and showing that you're reliable, showing that you are serious about the work you want to do, consistency. So start with your own skills. What can you offer people? Maybe something you've done in the past where you know that you're good at. That's where I would start.
Okay, great. And I have, I think, one of the few last questions that we'll take. I have from Margaret Abaye, and she's asking, can you please give us a list of reliable job boards when it comes to freelancing?
Reliable job boards. Yes, certainly. Again, I will do that, Trevor, if you can share that with me afterwards, and I can do that. And if she could just let me know what country she's in, because that would also help, or what region. So yes, I will absolutely share that.
Oh, great. And again, we have another question from Smooth by Services. As a freelancer, the question is, as a freelancer, I struggle to connect to client outside Nigeria. Are there platforms that allow me to showcase those services to global clients?
Yeah, good question. Quickly, I had the exact same question from someone a few days ago, and she's finding this quite difficult. And perhaps it comes down to, unfortunately, reputational issues, whatever, which is challenging for all of us. Again, let me share the platforms that I know of. If I could, Trevor, get Smoothby's email. But I would also say, certainly in the UK, Europe, US, LinkedIn is a very important tool for credibility around your just showing your own network and your business and your links. So, are you strong on LinkedIn? Are you showing yourself as a global provider of services? Does your network show you working in a global environment? That's one of the starting points I would absolutely work on. You need to show that you're operating in a global environment. But I will share the platforms that I know of after this.
So I want to say a really big thank you, Alison, for this. I think because of time, we'll stop there. And Alison, again, I want to thank you for your invaluable insights and relentless drive to empower Africa's future. Your vision is not just inspiring, it's transformative. We are grateful for your leadership. So again, thank you again. And I want to urge for the Lazarus, Margaret, and the Agrobet, please go to our social and drop your email so that we could assist you further. So without, I don't think I have anything else to share with you people. So I want to say thank you, Alison. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Trevor. It's an absolute pleasure. And thank you to everyone here today, and to AJ and to the NTEEP team. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye for now.